We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi, everyone. Welcome again to another edition of In the Weeds with Jimmy Young, a very special podcast that's available on all those popular podcast distribution networks like iTunes and Spotify and all that neat stuff. Plus, of course, we are making a video recording that's available on all of our social media platforms and soon coming to Twitch TV. Joining me on this particular program is a woman by the name of Kerri Accardi, who has a very kind of similar passion for media and production as I do. Kerri, thank you so much for joining us on In the Weeds with Jimmy Young.
Thanks for having me, Jimmy. It's exciting to be here.
It's an exciting time for you, and I guess I can jump on board with that too, as we too are gearing up for a launch of live streaming, but you are taking it to that next level immediately. Tell me about your new channel, your new Cannabis Channel that's coming to Roku and other distribution outlets out there starting in November of 2020. Where are you with this new Cannabis Channel?
Crazy town. Creating and producing is a lot, and then when you add in a cannabis in particularly, it changes the game. And so this is something I've been doing for a long time. I started 420 Media back in 2014 after leaving New York on a real mission to educate the world about cannabis after losing my Aunt Kathy, and really knowing that access to knowledge, let alone the access to actual medicine, could have, maybe she would be still here, or I don't know, because we all die, but I know that it was fear-based. There was propaganda surrounding it, and that's continual into 2020. And so even prior to starting 420 Media, when my aunt was in the hospital, I literally had drawn out this idea. Back then, it was going to be called Did You Know? So people might have seen some videos, like HM, did you know? And so we have a lot of people that would do facts about cannabis with a statement like that prior in many of our shoots over the years. But the idea itself really came out of necessity. When I was trying to get my family information about the medicine, I was not getting anything outside of really Rick Simpson that was substantial for my family. There was different people smoking herb or high times kind of stuff, and which I love, but it didn't translate to medicine for my aunt and for my family. And that's a different language. It's a different story. And it's a really important story, as you know now in 2020. And so basically, really long journey in this space, from television agency agreements with CBS to put content on their network to airing the first cannabis commercial during prime time in 2018 on History, Bravo, and Discovery channels, and then subsequently during the Super Bowl in 2019 in the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And so the whole time that I've been in this, either working with clients and building brand awareness, we were documenting. So from, Seattle Hemp Fest in 2014 to the first CW Expo to closed set shoots with NFL players and doctors or nurses. And I think for me, it's such a personal soul mission that I don't have a stop button, right? I don't have the stop because people are still dying right now. They're still going to jail, even in legal states. People getting involved in the industry don't even really understand the plant most times. And while I love everyone to come in and I love to share this knowledge, if we put out the wrong information, we're no better than reefer madness propaganda. And so for me, it was about finding the experts within the space that could reach the people that look like them or are them. So if they were an athlete, or if they were a doctor, if they were a nurse, a senior citizen, anything that would relate. And so I knew, coming from a really big family, no one was going to listen to me. You know, I didn't have that. I didn't have letters behind my name. I didn't have the white coat and that kind of experience. And so what I did was I stalked the cannabis industry. You know, I went out on the ground and I started meeting everyone from growers and to doctors and to scientists and labs and patients. And in that time, we were documenting it. As we went forward into the television deals, and in particular with CBS, we were working on, this is going into a documentary, but we were their agency of record in 2015 and 2016 for cannabis content to air during NFL games, during different shows and stations in that time. And that was an initial, our initial deal was a 1-minute piece. In our first shoot, I got a sponsor. For clarity, we were buying media, putting our own content on. They weren't paying us to do that. So we had a really clear intention, and which I thought was wonderful. So as we went out on our first shoot, I got a sponsor, a woman by the name of Leilania Dubois of Humboldt, California. And we went to Colorado to film a kid with Crohn's disease named Colton Turner. And Colton and his family were medical refugees. So, you know, he at that time he was 15. Prior to that, 12, 13, he was doped up in a wheelchair, couldn't really go out with his friends and really enjoy life. So when he became a medical refugee and used cannabis, his whole life changed. So he was our first story. We went out there, we had a full crew, filmed him, the family, and put it into a 1-minute piece. Very strong 1-minute piece, right? Hi, my name's Colton Turner. Cannabis is my medicine. Well, what happened at that time is CBS didn't say no to us when we gave it to them. They offered us a half-hour program in San Fran, Oakland, and San Francisco to 2.5 million homes on Saturday nights, and it was going to be called Medical Cannabis, the Healing Power of Knowledge. So I continued to take sponsorship, and at one point we had like a cannabis real world house. I had football players and doctors, I had nurses and moms, and the attorney that was running Regulate Florida, and we were filming. So while we were filming for the one show for CBS, I always knew we were going to launch the network. So we would have different shoots throughout, you know, different locations set up. Fast forward to today, I have 6 years of professionally filmed content. We have multiple series. One is called Fifth Quarter, hosted by Super Bowl champion Marvin Washington. So Marvin is with different football players talking about cannabis, football, suicide, talking about, we had him in a lab learning how to make CBD, learning about CBD, different interviews, and just really exploring through the athlete's eyes. We have another series called Nurse Talk that's medical, right? It's kind of like The View, in the stylistic, the table, guests, and pieces of information. So it really gets into the endocannabinoid system, dosing, why the plant works for us, how it works for us, the different products and methods of ingestion, or dose, you know, all those different things that one would need to understand. And then these are the top 3 we're putting out initial in. We have another one called Faces of Cannabis, which is like people like yourself, right? 30 plus pioneers in cannabis doing different things, from Wanda James, first Black dispensary owner out of Colorado, to a child named Landon Riddle, who is 7 years cancer free, and he's 9 years old because of cannabis, and then the gamut in between. And what they're doing is they're really sharing their story and giving insight to people, again, on this industry. What we think we know is much different than reality in cannabis. no matter what your background is and no matter where you come from. And so those are the top 3 series we're working on right now that we're putting out. But we have the Colton Turner story. We have the legalization in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So we've documented from 2015 to last year in 2019, where we threw the first educational conference. So actual Senate hearing. Kevin Sabat is in that, talking about the, how bad cannabis is, essentially. And I don't know if you know Kevin. He's out of SAM, but he's like our...
I know who he is.
Yeah. And I still got a selfie with him now. That was my thing. So, but and now we're going in. I was going to maybe send you a video too. We have an awesome animated series coming out now. So, lots of programming that we filmed, but lots of programming that we are. So meaning grow shows, cooking shows, building, hemp, anything you can imagine on television is going to be probably on our station within, not station, channel within cannabis, right? Cannabis, hemp, CBD. And it's really because you can't put this plant into a box, right? We can't put her into one show. It's like you can have a show and we can have a network, and other magazines and publishers can also have the same thing, because it's really that important to get this information out. And so now what we're doing is we're launching on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Fire Stick TV, 2 mobile apps, and online. We have an Emmy Award and advertising award-winning team behind it. We just added in interactivity. So we are going to be selling commercials to people in the cannabis space to get placed into our series for this exposure. And within that, we've added QR codes. So while watching the TV show, you can scan that commercial and it takes you right to the site within 30 seconds.
I believe we call that second screen content and engagement. Am I right? Isn't that the technical term in the business, Kerri?
It might be. I mean,
no, it is.
It is. In the OTT is kind of a new thing to me. So yeah, getting right on the lingo is knowing where that stands. But yeah, I mean, I know that it's an over 60% that people are searching while they're watching. And so if we can streamline that activity for them and not only give them brand awareness of maybe what a transdermal patch is and how it can help, and then streamline that for someone to go right to that site and learn more and perhaps purchase, to me is everything, right? We're giving you what it is amongst really great entertaining content that's educational with a streamlined call to action direct to consumer in cannabis.
Yeah, there you go. And I'll tell you, Kerri, I've interviewed a lot of people, but that may actually be one of the longest answers to a simple question I've ever gotten from anybody. So I appreciate it because you make my job so much easier. But I do have to ask you a direct question. As you know, because you've been in media, okay, audience is the product. The content drives the audience. Who exactly is the audience at this point? I think we both know that there is a lot of user content out there, a lot of stoner content out there, a lot of culture out there. You and I are both focused on news, information, and education. So I guess my question is, do you feel like the audience has now grown enough that they're hungry for more news, information, and entertainment, as opposed to, hey, what strain is best for you, man? Or like, hey, what bong do you use? You know what I'm saying?
You're starving for it.
You do believe that.
People are starving for information. It's imperative. We cannot change anything if we don't give the proper education and information. That's medical professionals, that's for politicians, that's for patients. So our audience is tremendous. all we have to do is statistically look at the numbers involved in cannabis, involved in hemp, involved in CBD. Period.
Okay. I mean, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you about the numbers. I do believe that there is a lot of interest in it. But my goal, as yours, is again to educate, inform, but I think it has to do with the people that are baby boomers, if you will, my age group and older, maybe within 10 years or so of the 60s, and who actually remember the 60s, are learning that this is not your old weed that you had for the $20 ounce or the nickel dime bag in the 60s and 70s. This is a completely different animal. And now that science is involved, you can actually dictate the DNA of the plant, so you can make a strain have more CBD or CBN in it for more medicinal purposes. And you talk a lot about this plant as a medicine, and I appreciate that. I respect that. There is that other genre out there that looks at it as strictly as a toy, as something to get buzzed and hang out with your friends and socialize, although we don't do any socialization these days during COVID. But my point again is, you've got an existing market. You know that there are 21 to 35-year-olds out there who are using and enjoy it and are part of the culture and have embraced it. But educating the older folks that can use it medicinally and get away from the stigma, to me, is the challenge in creating the content that you are out there trying to do as well. Do you agree with that?
No.
Okay, tell me why.
I think you can, and people, the perception of cannabis can be, hey, I'm going to get high or whatnot. But the fact of the matter is, we all have an endocannabinoid system. We have receptors for the plant. And so the reason it's feeling good, or maybe you feel high or whatever, is because it's feeding those receptors. Unlike alcohol, unlike different kind of pharmaceuticals where there's really harmful side effects, cannabis isn't going to give you that. I mean, you might eat someone out of house and home, you might fall asleep, but you're not, it's just not the same. And so I think what happened is, you have to look at history to understand the levels of deceit that had started, right? Cannabis was used in our medicines prior to the 30s. It was made illegal over hemp. It was over paper. It was over power. It was over greed. And then the tactic used was a racist tactic. Propaganda, reefer madness. Subsequently, 1937 Tax Act. It's very similar to what's happening today. Make it so high, people can't get involved, right? You just wash them out. So then you go into Nixon, the war on drugs, and then you go into the private prison system, right? Then you have Nancy Reagan with, an egg saying, this is your brain on drugs. No, it wasn't. It was a fucking egg. Okay? Like, that's the reality. So what I'm saying is that, perception is everything. And unfortunately, we're fighting a big stigma. And so the fact, though, is when your endocannabinoid system is the largest system in your body that helps regulate the other systems, digestive and otherwise, and cannabis creates what they call homeostasis, which is balance, then it's feeding you. It's feeding you. It's help people get off addiction. It's help people with any ailment really that I know outside of broken bones. And to me, should be the first line of defense across the board in anything. I'm not saying smoking per se. Some people don't want to smoke. I smoke. I have a bad stomach sometimes. Smoking's the quickest for me to feel better. I know people that take different tinctures. I know people that use creams. These are people like that couldn't move their hands, right? They're taking all these drugs. They can't move their hands. Their stomach's killing them from the drugs. They can't go to the bathroom. There's all these crazy side effects. And now they take a little scoop of this lotion, rub their hands, and boom. So again, educating people is imperative. the route we're choosing is education through entertainment, right?
Mm-hmm.
It gets boring. Wah, wah, wah. No one wants to watch it, right? So we have to engage with those, which is why for me, when I saw was, well, let's put people that listen to each other. Nurses will listen to other nurses. Doctors will listen to other doctors. Athletes watch that other athlete, right? So if you're watching Marv Washington and Boo Williams talking about CTE and pain and the benefits of cannabis, pretty profound. Maybe you're a football player, or maybe you're going into a football player. Now that information just gave you something you can use. Again, you go see a commercial, scan it. Maybe it's a tincture you can take now to help your body before you get beat up, before you get hit with CTA. And so I think, again, it's putting those, the veterans, like, look at the suicide. Like, this is this is life or death. And I think that's what people really, sometimes they're not really getting it. And so,
well, they use it as a last resort, and it has been a last resort for a lot of people who suffer from chronic pain or from any of these debilitating diseases like cancer. It's served as a last resort, and what you'd like to see it happen is to start thinking about it as, if not a first resort, actually preventative measure by getting your endocannabinoid system in balance to fight off viruses like COVID, for instance, right?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, look, cannabis is essential right now. They've closed down the whole country, gyms, businesses, salons, anything you can think of normal, but weed is essential. Except
in Massachusetts for about a month, but that's another story for another day. Okay, we don't need to get into the politics.
Yeah, I don't know.
We don't need to get it. The good news is at least the governor here did leave the medical dispensaries open. And what did you think happened? Medical cards went up, right? People went after the medical way to get into the dispensaries rather than just waiting in line and going to the adult use dispensaries. And, again, 91%, I believe, of Americans understand that there is indeed medicinal value to this plant. And I'm going to give you a did you know, because I know you value this kind of information. In the 1920s, doctors in the United States wrote 3 million prescriptions for cannabis-based medicine. That was before the 1937 controlled substances and Harry Anslinger and DuPont and Hearst backing reefer madness and all that. So it has been here for a long time, and now we're just rediscovering its medicinal uses in our society. But again, that stigma is out there, and you do still find it, and you believe you're still fighting it every day. Am I right?
Every day.
Yeah.
It's real. Because, Jimmy, I don't think it's the fight about the plant. It could be ego, right? If you punish your child for 20 years because they were smoking herb, or you put people in jail, or you did all this stuff based on this belief that this plant was bad, and now all of a sudden you're learning it's good, it's very jarring. It takes a very big person to step back and go, whoa, maybe
right.
I was wrong.
Right. And science and research is leading this green wave that we're finding even in Washington, D.C., where now cannabis has become a political chip in the divisiveness of our federal government. It's an amazing thing. You talked about your company starting in 2014. The last 6 years, there's been incredible growth and movement and more legal states coming on board. And then in November, we're going through a historic election that will dictate the direction of this country, not just over the next 4 years, but perhaps for another quarter century at least. It's imperative that people understand the importance of why this plant has become a chip in the political race. It's amazing to me that I've lived to see this day in my native state of Massachusetts too, Kerri. I just cannot believe it. It's incredible to me.
It's incredible to me to watch the growth, and at the same time, it's not growing, because the reality is it's not legal. So none of these businesses that exist are operating
As
under
businesses.
any normalcy, right? It's a hard banking, stigma, money, and what happens when people come in to make the rules that don't know what the rules are making, it just makes it worse, right? And so,
Do you think Mitch McConnell, who signed that farm bill in 2018 with a pen made out of hemp, had any idea the Pandora's box that he was opening?
I think this has been, anyone that opened their eyes and did a little research would know that this has been around a long time. I mean, the Seattle Hemp Fest is the longest running protestival going on its 29th year, I believe.
Then I'm going to challenge you, Kerri, because I know the Boston Freedom Rally celebrated its 30th year this past year. So it's around the same time.
And they work together.
What's that?
And they work together.
There you go. That's right. Absolutely. 100%. And again,
well, most did back then, actually. And
anyone who's involved with this industry, the passion that is attached to it is fascinating unto itself, that how you really do believe and how you get others to believe, and they see when you start talking about it, how much you really care about the science and research that drives the changing of the attitudes in our world, right?
Yeah. And it's not just science, though. I think plant medicine overall is really good. Food is really good, right? Food is thy medicine. And I think that what happened over the past 50 years or so is we've become addicted to doctors, right? Whatever they say, it's just okay. And so even trial treatment, even things that hurt you, all this stuff, if the white coat says it, they do it. And I think that that's mind control. And I think people need to free their mind. I think people need to own their bodies. I think they need to take better care of themselves. I think they need to stop eating like shit. You can't use cannabis and eat garbage and hurt your body in other ways and expect miracles. That's not what I believe. But utilizing that plant on a daily in some capacity even, which is why everyone should have the right to grow, because raw cannabis is powerful in itself. Pulling leaves off and putting those in your food and juice has taken people I know that have extreme autoimmune diseases and given them back a full life. So this is how powerful it is. And when you're fighting stigma. So the stigma was the TV, the stigma was what we do, which is why I'm doing it. I didn't come in as a business person going, hey, I'm going to start these businesses and come in and, you know, everything that we're doing. I came in as a mission because I lost my best friend. And I knew she didn't have to go out like that. I've lost someone recently again.
No, I'm sorry.
We all die, but how you die is important. And when you suffer, and you suffer for no reason because some doctor told you, try this trial treatment, try this trial. They don't know jack. They don't know jack, period, but have no problem demonizing this plant, demonizing it. Ask them if they know about the endocannabinoid system.
Actually, I enlightened my own doctor about the endocannabinoid system and told him to do research in order for me to get my next physical with him, because I said it just doesn't make sense. If my health insurance is telling me to get a annual physical and paying for it, that I would think that the doctor that I'm getting that from should have some idea of what the endocannabinoid system does in my body before he does anything else to my body, if you catch my drift. You know what I'm saying?
I do. And I think, like, to add to that is again, history, right? And money. So you have to look at where this comes from. When the AMA is being funded by pharmaceutical companies, you are taught to write scripts. You are not taught to get to the core of why you're in pain, why your stomach, why you're mental, right? Well, what about trauma? What about PTSD? What about those kind of things that affect us all? And we brush them off, right? Oh, they're crazy. They're this. If they react, no, they're in pain.
Right. No. I live with my chronic pain. every day. That being said, I got to ask you, you mentioned diet. Can I ask you personally, are you a plant-based diet person, or are you still on the meat and potato side of things?
Yeah, I do eat meat still, but I not often. And I found in the past few years, just naturally, my body is just not feeling it.
Yep.
I haven't quite got there yet. I won't even watch the movie on Netflix, Game Changers, because I'm scared.
Oh,
that
you
what it will.
I get, Kerri, don't be scared. You know what? Because
I'm in my mother's in North Carolina, and she's a junk eater, and so I'm like, if I watch that with her, it's not going to be there. It just won't be good. I'll drive her insane, right? So I'm like, I got a couple more weeks here, and then I'll go into into that.
But you already embrace plant medicine without even knowing at least the idea about the human and the endocannabinoid system. And, you know, Western medicine takes care of the symptoms. Eastern medicine is preventative. And to me, I'm willing to accept both, to be honest with you. And whatever works is really what dictates what I do. That being said, that show and watching the athletes, the highest performing athletes on plant-based diets improve their performance in their sport really hit home with me. I mean, it was like, whoa, that means all those vegans out there, and I don't make fun of them at all because they're quite a long time. I lived with a few of them, that it was amazing the impact it had on me as far as thinking about my own body, my own diet, and that sort of thing. Now, I'll admit it, I have not made that many changes. I understand the differences between Eastern and Western, and I understand the differences between plant-based diets and non-plant-based diet. I've certainly taken away whole milk out of my diet and gone to oat and almond milk, and haven't really seen, I've actually enjoyed it more. So there are certain things that you'll take out of that, but I really do recommend that. And another show I want to recommend, if you haven't seen it, did you see Growing Belushi on the Discovery Channel last week or not?
You know what? I was trying to get it. I couldn't. My friend passed away last week, so I wasn't in a really good headspace. Yeah, it was not fun. But I tried to go and look at some of the clips, and I support him, and
he's awesome.
Support getting the information out. Just get the information out.
And
he's pretty funny, actually, I think.
Oh, he's terrific. And that's what I mean, again, I don't know how much of it was real reality, but it was, even if it was embellished reality, it was entertaining. And it was educational. And one of the things that came out of it, we actually talked about this on our We Talk News show with Kurt from Cannabis.net, is that Jim admitted and said, if medical marijuana had been around in the 70s and the research and the science had been more accepted then, he really does believe his older brother John would still be alive. And that's a powerful statement to make. I don't care whether you believe in it or not. That, especially with someone who knew exactly the type of personality that John Belushi was, and Jim is a different person. Of course he is. But he too is very talented as a musician. And now he's learning by being a farmer in Oregon. And I'll tell you, I think I give him a lot of credit for coming out, if you will, and talking about it openly. And they had the family intervention scene, and they had the various characters that he has working with him on the farm. And his self-deprecation humor, to me, is his greatest quality. So I totally enjoyed it. Actually watched it for the second time this past weekend. For just to make sure I picked up everything I was supposed to pick up, because I am trying to reach out to Jim and get him to come into our live stream that'll start sometime in September. So that's where we're at with that. What's the most exciting show that you have in development for your new channel? Kerri? Did we lose Kerri? Oh, she's thinking. Oh, that's a good thing. It's good to have thoughts. You know, Jim Valvano said, you want to laugh, you want to cry, and you want to have a deep thought every day. So I could just kind of fill for a few more seconds or minutes if you'd like, Kerri, as you ponder, which is a very exciting new project as far as content production in your new channel.
I really believe the excitement is actually putting the content out and seeing the response. So for me, like I tell, we have over 300 people in the space on camera to camera like this, plus B-roll and brands and music and products and all of that. And so it's a gamut of content, right? So you can see some fun and you get real serious. You have moms talking about their children and there's just a lot of content. I know, it's like I tell Marv and a lot of the people I get to work with is, we know people are going to come to that channel. I have not even one single doubt people will come to the channel because of what it is. And just, again, on a numbers, there's just not many cannabis channels right now in that capacity. Now, whether they come back, whether they download those apps, that's going to be based on the response that people have viscerally to the content. So what I find, like, I have put the content on TVs for people to watch, just different stuff raw. I've watched people cry. I've watched them giggle. I've watched them watch themselves. And to me, that was one of the most beautiful things because they were affected. You know, to watch my friend crying, I was like, yes, you know, yes, because you get it and you're feeling it. And so I'm excited about all the projects that we have because I believe that they all have their place of feeding this information. And now I'm excited to see how people take that information and use it. Are they gonna scan that commercial and then go buy those products? Or are they gonna go into their dispensary or into their doctor and start discussing cannabis now more because they saw Dr. Sue Sicily or Dr. Sunil Agarwal from NIH or Dr. Uma Damabalan say, hey, this is cannabis, right? And so this is medicine. I just feel like I'm excited about the whole thing. I'm excited to get this out and I'm more excited to watch people get empowered and take care of themselves, take care of their business, take care of their politics. Because again, this misinformation that's happening right now is, you know, this is the only space I've ever been around that you can be in for 6 months to a year and you're calling yourself an expert. You know, I mean, that's just mind-blowing to me. And because, unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of faces to this industry. So if you didn't meet someone at an event or if you didn't know someone, you don't know them. You didn't know their face, which also allowed a lot of cons to infiltrate, right? So I think that, you know, I'm excited to see, like, ESPN talking about Marv's show. About these NFL players. I mean, Marv's got a court case going to the Supreme Court for cannabis. Right. You know, I'm excited to see, you know, my goal, and if anyone's watching your SNL, is let them make fun of us. Did you know? Did you know? You know, like, I don't care where that attention is coming from, as long as we're getting it. As long as you're empowered.
Well, they say there's no such thing as bad PR, right? I mean, if people are talking about you, they've noticed you, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, that's what talk shows.
But I understand what you're saying.
That's what talk shows are based on, by the way, an open conversation forum. And Lord knows, I know you know where to find a talk show host who loves to talk about cannabis and ask good questions and interview people and all that neat stuff, Kerri. So I hope we continue our conversation to see how we might best work together in the future. Is that a deal?
Oh, absolutely. I will shout out to Karen. Karen and I are in touch often.
Fair enough. That's great. So Kerri Accardi from 420 Media, how can people find out about this new Cannabis Channel?
So it's under aNewCannabisChannel.com. That's not actually the name of it. We'll release that in the future with our team and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's to hold it. It's a new cannabischannel.com, 420media.us, or Kerri at 420media.us to get me directly. LinkedIn, any of the socials. I mean, I'm probably one of the nicest in giving people information, although I'm hardcore, right? My tone is a little rough. I say fuck a lot, things like that. But the intention behind this is to empower people,
right?
Really to empower them. And I think that I know we can do it. And that's really what the goal is. So right. I think we'll definitely work together. I mean, we're aligned, right? Getting
absolutely.
This,
and knowledge is good. That's what Dean Faber said in Animal House. Remember that, right? Knowledge is good, something like that, right? Isn't that what it's about? And that's what you're about. And I appreciate that. So for Kerri Accardi from 420 Media and a new Cannabis Channel, I'm Jimmy Young, the host of In the Weeds. And remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to In the Weeds.
We Talk Now, We Talk News, and In the Weeds are all available on most major podcast distributors like iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and our friends at clnsmedia.com and our flagship, cannabis.net. So subscribe, share, and like our videos on all the social media networks out there, including LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the WeedTube, and YouTube. Weed Talk and In the Weeds are two productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.